So Deutsch. Shamarasa, du übersetzt ins Deutsche? Ja. Yeah. Aha, so wer übersetzt dann? Wer übersetzt für euch? Ja? Okay, Elias ist der deutsche Dolmetscher. Super. So, und heute lesen wir Text 23, oder? Oder 24? 23. Wort für Wort. Sunanda, Nando, Uchatuhu, Bho, Rajan, Subhadrang, Te, Vacham, No, Vahitaha, Shrinu, Yaha, Panchavarshas, Tapasam, Bhavan, Devam, Atitripat, Sunandananda Uchatuhu, Bho Rajan Subhadramte, Bho Rajam Subhadramte, Vacham no Vahita Shrino, Vacham no Vahita Shrino, Yah Panchavarshastapasaham, Bhavam Devam Atitripat. Okay, muss man anders trennen, weil die erste Zeile ist eigentlich nur eine Einleitung zum Vers, nämlich Nanda und Sunanda sprechen. Okay. Sunandananda Uchatuhu, Bhorajam Subhadram Te, Vacham no Vachita Shrinu, Yapanchavarshastapasa, Bhavam Devamati Tripat, Sunandananda Uchatuhu, Bhorajam Subhadram Te, Vacham no Vahita Shrinu, Yapanchavarshastapasa, Bhavam Devamati Tripat, Sunandananda Uchatuhu, Bhorajam Subhadram Te, Vacham no Vahita Shrinu, Yapanchavarshastapasa, Bhavam Devam Atitripat, Sunandananda Uchatuhu, Bhorajam Subhadram Te, Vacham no Vahita Shrinu, Yapanchavarshastapasa, Bhavam Devam Atitripat. please. Anybody else? Word by word. Sunanda Nanda Uchatuhu. Sunanda and Nanda said, Bobho Rajan, O dear king, Subhadram, good fortune, Te, unto you, Vacham, words, Naha, our, Avahitaha, attentively, Shrinu, hear, Yaha, who, Panchavarshaha, 5 years old, Tapasa, by austerity, Bhavan, you, Devam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Atitripad, greatly satisfied. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Nanda and Sunanda, the two confidential associates of Lord Vishnu, said, Dear King, let there be all good fortune unto you. Please attentively hear what we shall say. When you were only 5 years old, you underwent severe austerities, and you thereby greatly satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Once again the verse. Nanda and Sunanda, the two confidential associates of Lord Vishnu, said, Dear King, let there be all good fortune unto you. Please attentively hear what we shall say. When you were only 5 years old, you underwent severe austerities, and you thereby greatly satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. What was possible for Dhruva Maharaj is possible for anyone. Any 5-year-old child can be trained, and within a very short time, his life will become successful by realization of Krishna consciousness. Unfortunately, this training is lacking all over the world. It is necessary for the leaders of the Krishna consciousness movement to start educational institutions in different parts of the world to train children, starting at the age of 5 years. Thus, such children will not become hippies or spoiled children of society. Rather, they can all become devotees of the Lord. The face of the world will then change automatically. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sriyuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Namo Prabhupada Priyarasaya Jagannatha Yatra Nandamurtaye Bhakta Sukaya Krishnot Kirtanena Nrisinghe Narakshitaya Namaha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhaktashaktikam Sankarshana Karanato Yashai Garbhodashai Chapayobdishai Sheshascha Kala Sanityanandakyarama Sharanam Mamastu Namo Mahavaranjaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Goratvise Namaha Namaste Halagraha Namaste Mushlayuda Namaste Revatikanta Namaste Bhaktavatsala Namaste Dharanidhara Namaste Balaram Shishta Pralambari Namaste Stve Himam Krishna Purvaja He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopipakanta Radhakanta Namostute Jayatam Surato Pangur Mamamanda Matergati Mat Sarvasva Padam Bhajo Radhamadana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadru Mada Shimatardangara Simhasanasto Śrīmad-Radha Srila Govinda Deva Uprashtalivi Savimana Usmarami Śrīmandra Sarasaram Vivam Siva Tatatastitaha Karsham Veno Sonar Gopi Gopinata Shriyastunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Once again the verse. Sunandananda uchatuhu bhobho rajam subhadram te vacham no vahita shrino yah pancha varsastapasa bhavan devam atitripat. Nanda and Sunanda, the two confidential associates of Lord Vishnu, said, Dear King, let there be all good fortune unto you. Please attentively hear what we shall say. When you were only 5 years old, you underwent severe austerities, and you thereby greatly satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. So, when we hear the story of Prahlad Maharaj, we also hear how Prahlad Maharaj instructed his classmates. And Prahlad himself was also a very young boy, maybe also 5-6 years old, very young. And the young Prahlad instructed his friends and broke down the 100 years that we live into different sections. And unfortunately, I don't know it anything anymore by heart. But basically, he was saying that, we spent around, 12, 13 years with childish play. So 12, 13 years of your whole life already gone just playing. Then so many years of our life we spent sleeping. So if you sleep, let's say, like a disciplined sadhaka, only 5 to 6 hours a day, still, 6 hours is still a quarter. A quarter. So that means if you live 100 years, you sleep for 25 years. And if you sleep more, then accordingly, you sleep for much more time. And I forgot what else he was saying, but basically you can understand the point that he's making is that we spend, out of 100 years that we live, we spend decades and decades, sleeping, eating, playing, not doing what we actually should be doing. So the point that he's making is, the second point that he's making in this connection is then that we are all old, because sometimes people say, I will become serious when I'm old. Like there's famous cartoon, I forgot where it was, in the Back to Godhead magazine or somewhere. And there's a small child, baby, small baby, chant Hare Krishna, become a devotee. Too young, too young. He's too young. We cannot bring the children every day to Mangalartik. They're too young. You could argue. They're too young. They should just play. They don't need to they don't understand philosophy anyways. Let them play. Too young. Then you are a young adult. You are too distracted with so many things. Studying, traveling, goes not what else. Then you become an adult, have a family, you're working, you're of course too busy. Then you become old and have all to deal with all kinds of sicknesses. So you're too old, and then it's too late. So like that. Prahlad Maharaj says that actually we are all to be considered old. Because what is the definition of being old? The general definition of being old, obviously, is that you are on the verge of death. To be on the verge of death means the death is very imminent, could happen at any time. That means you're old. So then Prahlad Maharaj concludes, everybody's old, Everybody's on the verge of death, Death could happen to anybody at any time, Don't children die, Don't young people die, middle-aged people die. So therefore, we should all become serious, as soon as possible. As soon as possible, we should be serious and take up the process of Krishna consciousness, spirituality, seriously from a very young age. We should not think that it's too early for children to be engaged. Not at all. We underestimate children for sure. We underestimate children. We think children are maybe stupid is too hard of a word, but maybe they're not able, not capable, And of course they're more limited, But very often you are surprised, how much they actually already understand. Like I have a young boy, he's now 9 months old, and sometimes you think, he's just a small baby, But then you realize he already understands quite a lot, He's observing the whole time, whatever you do, whatever is happening around him, He's always observing and looking. So children are described to be like sponges. Children are like sponges. So a sponge, the quality of a sponge is that it can absorb a lot very quick. So you have a nice big sponge. You have a lot of water lying on the floor. You have a big sponge. You put the sponge and then all the water goes into the sponge automatically. So children are like sponges. Whatever they are surrounded by, that will be what they absorb, obviously. So they are absorbing constantly. Children are, from the moment they're born, and even before they're born, as we hear from Prahlad Maharaj, even before birth, Prahlad Maharaj had the benefit of hearing the Bhagavatam for nobody else than Narada Muni directly. So directly he heard the Bhagavatam from Narada Muni. And when he was born, he already had the whole knowledge of the Bhagavat into himself. So that we know. So even before birth, we try to expose the baby in the womb to spiritual sound vibration. And many devotees try to read the whole Bhagavatam. Or at least a part of the Bhagavatam, because children, once they're born, they recognize also kirtans. Once they're born, this is known scientific fact. When children are born, whatever music the parents were hearing during pregnancy, or the mother especially, the child recognizes. It's like if there's some music, some sound, the mother was hearing the whole time. Afterwards, when he hears it, he's like, yeah, that I know. So, children are learning the whole time. And by the time they are 5 years old, they are actually, you can have a full conversation actually with a child. If you take some attention, you sit with them, they will be able to lead a conversation with you. But especially, they are, you could say, attracted like a magnet, attracts snails. They are attracted to somebody explaining or telling something. Maybe nothing, not something philosophically, or abstract necessarily, but especially stories. I remember one time I was in the temple in Berlin, and I forget, there was some festival was there, and I somehow sat down and started telling one story, for example, of Agasura or something, and then immediately, all the children started coming. They're all from like, hey, he's telling a story, and everybody came. Then I had all these children sitting around me, and so children love stories, of course. Bedtime stories, bonfire stories. Hearing stories, is very impressive for children, and we have an abundance of stories. We have so many stories, spectacular, heroic, full of wisdom, full of adventure, full of victory, glory, everything. If it's the Bhagavatam or Ramayana or Mahabharata, they are incredible stories. So many stories are there to be told. And children absorb it. Children fully absorb whatever they are, exposed to. And it's also known in education or raising children, that the first 3 years, especially, but the first years, so have an extreme, you could say, influence to the rest of the child's life. Whatever happens in the first 3 years of life will determine how this person will develop. So if the person is, like Ramananda always tells, he memorized, when he was a child, he grew up in Eastern Germany, so they had to memorize all these Russian communist songs. So he still now, 40 years later, knows them by heart. You try to memorize a Sanskrit verse, and you struggle. Because the sponge at one point is full. So that was a traditional system of Gurukula education also, that children were given the task to memorize. So the task to memorize is very valuable for children, because children might not understand philosophical concepts, but they can memorize easily. So that's very important. So you can tell stories to children, but don't try to explain deep philosophy, and expect them to be attentive for a long time. But what children can do is memorize verses, shlokas, and there are many children who memorize, the whole Bhagavad Gita, or the whole Brahma Samhita, and the idea was that children should, especially in the first 12 years, memorize as many verses as possible, so that by the time they are 12 years and they have matured in their psychology, they can now have basically you could say a whole library, by heart. So, the teachers then, had a whole, that's why in traditional ancient educational system, the Gurukulas, they didn't have necessarily a big library. Traditional Gurukulas, there are still accounts, because the Muslims destroyed a lot in India, but the English really killed it then. They taxed, they put so many taxes on all the merchants and local rulers that they had no money to anymore subsidize the Gurukul system. So, but the English were good at making, censuses, so they went throughout India and made many censuses, how many schools were there and what they were doing, etc. And all Gurukulas usually had at least one book. That was the Mahabharata. And other Gurukulas might have had, Ramayana and Mahabharata, and then other Gurukulas might have had, Upanishads and whatever, many other things. But all Gurukulas at least had Mahabharata, which still is, it's one book, but it's a big book, It's Mahabharata is, I think, 100 and something thousand verses, so one big book. And based on the Mahabharata, the teachers would, recite the stories of Mahabharata, and the students would learn shlokas from the Mahabharata, like Bhagavad Gita. So by the time they were 12 years, most of them had, what I mean with Mahabharata, they only had one copy also, like one Gurukula, one copy, because of course, before all the books had to be, transcribed, either with ink or scratching into palm leaves. So a book was extremely valuable. But it was not necessary that everybody had a book. Like nowadays, every children has a book. It's one big problem in schools that children have to carry such big bags, There's like a child this size and the bag is this size, You can see like they're almost touching with their heels the backpack, when they run. And there's even reports that children get back problems, from carrying so many books. So in traditional schools, children would usually study under a tree, and they would draw and learn how to write in sand. You would draw the letters, the characters in sand. So also very environmentally friendly. No need to waste, tons of paper on some gibberish writing from children, And especially children memorized, So by the time they were 12, the teacher did not have to tell, okay, open your books in page 320, He would say, so we'll talk now about Shloka Bhagavad Gita, 10:8, and all the students, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarva prabham pravartate iti madhva vajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha, straight away. And then the teacher would discuss the verse with them. So, very powerful system. And when I was in Gurukul, also we memorized Bhagavad Gita. I memorized one chapter. It was the second chapter. Second chapter I memorized. And we read and heard about so many of the stories of the Bhagavatam. So many years later, when I became a brahmachari with 17, 18, for me it was really easy and amazing, because many years later then I actually studied all the texts, with the purports, of course, and then suddenly what I learned, that I knew the whole time, became so much more profound, so much more deep, so much more elaborate, nuanced, all the details, all the missing pieces also, fit together. So it is, very powerful if children, as early as possible, in the most natural way, are introduced to, everything related, everything that we are doing. There is this misconception that there's that categorically children and adults need to have different occupations. But that's and of course there are things that are obvious. You don't put a child, to drive a car. But in modern times, of course, it has become very common that some sinful activities only for adults, So, and children are not allowed, So you're sitting in the table, and then only the adults, get beer and wine, and for the children there's apple juice, But of course, I know of many children, some friends and, many people, children, they're curious, So I know of many children who, then, like the parents are not there, and there's some glass left on the table, we're never allowed to drink this, Now I'm going to try, Happens a lot, and then children, drinking, some alcohol or something. But the more you could say that the more the culture is in the mode of goodness, it's equally good for children and adults. There's nothing that we are doing as adults that we should not share with children. It's not like, no, children cannot do puja. No, why? Children cannot do puja. They can do kirtan. Everything that we do, in our essential, you could say sources of pleasure and satisfaction, and they are equally valuable for children. And that's, of course, an ideal situation, because then there's no artificial suppression. Like I mentioned before, children at a very young age can be, extremely deep. Of course, children are very, you could say, simple. And they're not yet, you could say, accustomed to deceiving. Children are very easy to read. Because they're very honest. They're very direct. Which might also cause problems sometimes. Because children can be very mean also. And they don't mind being mean. We pretend to be nice, while inside we're actually, maybe not so nice. But if children are given the proper examples, they naturally follow. In general, that's of course the case. Whatever the parents do, the children will ultimately follow. So if the parents are telling you don't drink, don't smoke, but they're smoking and drinking themselves, it's only a question of time. Of course, they will also start, smoking and drinking. And yes, so all of this is the theory, which is of course ideal and good. So now the practical part is the more difficult part. Because Srila Prabhupada is saying here, of course this training is lacking all over the world. This training is lacking, it's not really there. And therefore he says, it is necessary for the leaders of the Krishna conscious movement to start educational institutions in different parts of the world to train children starting at the age of 5 years. So, very clear, direct instruction. It's not the only time Srila Prabhupada will make this, will write about it in the Bhagavatam. And the first Gurukula that was established in Dallas, in USA, in Texas, the first Gurukula. And so what I'm starting to tell is a little bit controversial, but we'll talk about it anyways. So the Gurukul in Dallas was the very first Gurukula, and it was run by Swarup Maharaj and some other devotees, other teachers. But unfortunately, it was a big disaster. Bluntly put, it was a big disaster. It was not successful. And then there was another attempt later in New Vrindavan, and it was a nicer setting, but it was also, with many, many problems. So the question is, what were the problems? And if you read all of Prabhupada's instructions, it's relatively easy to understand where the problems came from. But you could say, to summarize it, the problem was that at that time, most of the people who started running Gurukulas, or who were devotees or leaders of the movement, were themselves very young devotees, and they did not have access to all the things Srila Prabhupada had said, because not everything had been printed. Also, Prabhupada hadn't said everything he wanted to say. So, what's the name of Manidar's wife? Mitravinda, I think, also. Anyway, she was telling that actually nowadays we have a huge advantage. We have a huge advantage because we have access to everything. We have video material, we have tapes, We have all the books. We have conversations, So we have complete, if we want, we can take advantage of the entire, you could say, Vanipedia, the entire Vani, the entire, collection of instructions Srila Prabhupada gave. And that was certainly lacking in the beginning, certainly lacking in the beginning, and it's still reverberating until today to some extent. A very narrow idea, of what it means to raise Krishna-conscious children. And Govinda Mataji, who recently visited us, she has she regularly talks about it, how badly misunderstood, this topic was. And to just give a, maybe certainly shocking, but very clear, you could say, point why it was a huge mistake, like it was done very wrongly, and it's still being done wrongly in many places. I'll take a sidetrack, like we know Bhagavat Dharma Prabhu, who was recently here. He was talking about education of children, and he said, and he's certainly raised, Krishna-conscious children, by himself, homeschooling, but he said he will never put his children in a gurukul. So that's, of course, not a good sign. And from all the students who actually joined the Dallas Gurukula, only there's this picture, very famous picture, where all the students are standing there. The first batch of ISKCON Gurukula. Out of them, maybe there were like 30, 40 students. I think 2 are devotees. Then a whole lot committed suicide. So what went wrong? What went wrong? Something went terribly wrong. And we could analyze in the details, but it's not necessary to analyze the detail. The very simple point is impersonalism. Srila Prabhupada, in the very beginning, he was talking, of course, about Mayavadis. And Mayavadis, most people didn't know what a Mayavadi is. So they asked Prabhupada, who are these Mayavadis? Where are the Mayavadis? We don't know. There's no Mayavadis in the West. And Srila Prabhupada laughed. It's like, you are all Mayavadis. So what does it mean? Mayavadi, when we say Mayavadi, of course, we refer to the, specifically the philosophical tradition, following Shankaracharya. But in an expanded understanding, it's impersonalism, that we are very impersonal and harsh. Impersonalists are submitting themselves to very heavy rejection and tapasya and austerity, to the level that they become harsh towards others as well. So this is the golden rule, for tapasya, because we hear here, of course, that the Lord was very, very pleased with the tapasya of the young boy Dhruva. So Dhruva had such a strong determination, and he wanted to. Nobody forced Dhruva to make tapasya. He wanted to make tapasya, and this tapasya pleased the Lord, very, very much. So doing tapasya is very good and is pleasing to the Lord. And in the Bhagavatam, a little bit later, I think, in the story of Prithu Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada also says that, in a purport, that bhakti is very difficult to achieve. Specifically, Srimati Radharani is very difficult to please, but she's pleased with somebody who's very strict and serious. But in the Nectar of Devotion, we also hear that too much theoretical knowledge and too much austerity can be hindrances in devotional service. Why? Because they make the heart hard. They harden our heart, and we become devoid of compassion. While a devotee's main quality is compassion. That should be his main quality. A devotee is, kripa sindhu, not only a little bit compassion, an ocean of compassion. So an ocean of compassion. An Uttamadhikari, he does not even see any differences at all. Because he sees everybody as parts and parcels of Krishna, and he is generously distributing, Krishna prema. That's also, of course, the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Without discrimination, distributing Krishna prema. So the problem is, of course, when we take cold showers, every day, and you're not doing it really with the right mindset, You're not doing it with the right, maturity, At one point, if somebody takes a hot shower, it might disturb you, I remember in Berlin, we had a temple, and we used to, brahmacharis, we take cold showers, So always a cold shower, at least at the end, hot and then cold. And then, somebody went out of the shower, you stepped into the shower sink, and the floor is warm. It's like, Maya! And you become frustrated, I'm suffering alone, So that's a clear sign, maybe you should start taking only warm showers, Because the heart becomes hard. You make aparadas, you make offenses, and that's the killer of bhakti. And that was what went wrong in Gurukulas and ISKCON for sure. Very, very harsh treatment of children. Very harsh treatment of children. So when there's harsh treatment of children, due to immaturity naturally, of course, they will not, as soon as they have some liberty, they will reject everything. So if we want to follow this instruction of Srila Prabhupada properly, we need to, the leaders, of Krishna Conscious Society, and the old generation is going. The burden of leadership is, coming on us. We need to think, how we will, benefit the world by establishing such, educational institutions. And Srila Prabhupada was very clear, in very clear terms. Basically, when he was sometimes confronted with, harsh treatment, mistreatment of children, what did Srila Prabhupada say? They should be killed. The perpetrators should be killed. Very clear. No, no. This is dharma. Dharma is sometimes might seem that dharma is, because especially nowadays in our modern world, we have this idea of, that capital punishment is very bad. Capital punishment means death by law, basically. If a country still has death penalty, it's marked red in a world map. But actually, we hear also from Srila Prabhupada that if somebody commits a crime, killing somebody or molesting a child, this karma is upon him. So a qualified ruler, is entitled to kill that person by law, so that karma is gone. That person can continue with a new, cleanse of that karma. Of course, that whole misplaced compassion towards criminals and not give them death penalty is only because we don't have a full understanding of what life means or how long life lasts. That we have a previous life and we have a future life. If there's only one life, it makes sense. There's only this one life. He made one mistake, and now he has to spend the rest of his life in prison, or maybe even die straight away. How cruel! No, it's only one life, out of an eternal existence, and a well-deserved punishment is redeeming. It's purifying. If you make a mistake, if you deserve to be chastised or punished accordingly. Yes, So there is no question that the ideal that Srila Prabhupada set, and also you could say the whole picture that Srila Prabhupada gave, one example, one other, you could say, reason why ISKCON Gurukulas often didn't work was because the parents saw the Gurukula as an option to get rid of children, bluntly put. It's like, I want to preach, the holy gospel of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and these children are annoying, you have to clean them, they're crying the whole day. So let's put them in the Gurukul, and of course a child feels that, That's called Varna Shankara, unwanted children. If you feel unwanted, that becomes a threat, a problem to society, naturally. So, yes, immaturity from the side of the parents, immaturity from the side of the teachers, the leaders, has led to a situation that still in ISKCON we don't have, a fully fledged, worldwide, Prabhupada says, all over the world, we should have, educational institutions. And there are, of course, some stellar, few examples, but all in all, we have not yet been successful fulfilling this instruction. And it's important because the prediction Srila Prabhupada gives is that he says, thus such children will not become hippies. Of course, back then, hippies in that context, meant somebody who was going against society. Or in other words, of course, hippies, Prabhupada, encountered the hippies. He was living among the hippies in New York, and he saw how, confused they were, He had to deal with many LSD cases, who were eating with both hands like animals, And he managed to cure quite a few of them, Or spoiled children of society. Rather, they can all become devotees of the Lord. The face of the world will change automatically. So, one prediction of Srila Prabhupada is that the third generation, depending how you count, third generation will be pure devotees. So we live in Kali Yuga, and we can expect, all kinds of, setbacks. Also intentional setbacks. There's no question that ISKCON has been infiltrated by Kali Chelas. Prabhupada talks about it. Kali Chela is a follower of Kali in the disguise of a devotee. And it's not a conspiracy theory. We know about it. Some of them were directly sent by the CIA. To undermine. They became big gurus, big leaders, and then they just left after selling big properties. But in all kinds of areas, there are Kali Chelas. Who pretend to be devotees, but actually they are not. And this has an effect, of course, in society. Yes, so I couldn't avoid talking about this because it's in the purport. So I'll stop here now, but maybe there are some questions or something you would like to add. Huh? Yeah, you can ask the question, I'll repeat it. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. So yeah, this is a very, very important point you made, that the Bhagavadharma Prabhu's realization was that traditional Gurukulas were, of course, run by the Guru and his wife, a family, basically. So when the children went to Gurukula, they had a family, environment. Whereas the ISKCON Gurukulas very often were sannyas Gurukula, sannyasi or brahmacharis were the teachers, and that's why there was harshness, a lot of harshness. So that's, you could say, yeah, care and love of the mother was missing. Yeah, like you rightly said, there's recently I heard about, I came to read and heard about Gurukul attempt by some devotees from Bangalore in India. Very qualified devotees. They actually used to live in Germany before. I know them from seeing them. And now they have established a school in Bangalore, near Bangalore. And they call it, I forgot, Vedic Vidyalaya or not Mahabhagavad Vidyalaya, but also Vidyalaya. Vidyalaya means, school. And it's a day school only. So the children go back home. It's not a, like you say, internat. No. The children don't live there. Boarding school, I think it's called. No? Boarding school is a school where you live also. So not a boarding school, a day school only. But they have very high parameters. They have very high parameters. When the children wants to join their school, because it's just the first attempt they're doing, and they've been very successful in the last, I don't know, maybe 8 years, maybe 10 years, and they want to expand into many more schools now. But their system is that they invite the child to spend a day in the school. Then the teachers observe the children, how they're doing, how they're behaving. Then the teachers go and visit the family. And after a few more things, only then they're admitted, to that school. So you have a very high standard, of education. Yes, so I don't have a final, formula how exactly we could do it or should do it, but the instruction is very clear that we need to do it and we need to do it right. We certainly can learn from past mistakes. Also, Shivaram Maharaj actually established a quite good system in Hungary. They also have only day school. So there are some examples that we can take, which very pragmatically, learn from the mistakes from the past and try to establish something new, something that works. But yes, a success of a society is when it internally grows. In other words, if we are dependent always on new bhaktas coming, and then just come, they become brahmacharis, then they become frightened and go, and then the next set of bhaktas come and then we go, then of course it's not sustainable. Many traditions like the Amish that are very closed off to the rest of society, they don't get any new bhaktas at all. They only have children and train them. And the Amish have the system that at the age of 18, because Amish are actually German descent, so at the age of 18, all the children of the Amish are allowed to do Rumspringer. And Rumspringer means rumspringen, or jumping around in German. So they can go out and jump around in the world, and Rumspringer and see what happens in the world. And most of the children of the Amish, after some time of Rumspringer, come back. Some stay, of course, but the vast majority of Amish go back to their families. So, yes, that's what I can say. Anything else? Yes. Yes. No, of course, the idea is we want to keep everybody, but also the children, If you lose the children, then you're doing something really wrong. Because theoretically, they should be from the beginning, so involved that they want to stay. Yes. Ramananda? Mm. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Yes. Mm. Yeah. So Vanaprastha, of course, means retired. When your children have grown up, you retire. And this Gurukul near Bangalore that I mentioned is exactly that. It's a couple who had their children already. They're old already, and now they establish a school. So that's a very ideal situation. If a senior devotee who has experience in raising children then establish a Gurukul. Yes, like Bhakti Vikash Maharaj is very strong on that point. Like, I'm a sannyasi, I cannot give advice to children, how to raise children, how to be married. I'm a sannyasi, So he can give advice on how to be a brahmachari, Yes. Okay. If there's no other points, we'll stop here. Grantara Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai.